All right, folks, we are back here on WLTH 1370M. That is 92.7 in the FM dial if you're nasty. Yes, it is Friday, August the 7th, 2026. The future is here. The future is now. Yes. The future not looking so good. Not looking so good at all in a lot of ways. It's funny, like, Donald Trump ran all 3 times on being opposed to the military-industrial complex and being opposed to being America being all up in everybody else's business. He just said, look, I only care about America. I'm America first. I am America first. So would you believe it? I was extremely surprised when I woke up a few days ago to learn that we in America are apparently at war with Spain. Yes. Spain, of all places. Spain. What did Spain ever do to anybody? Like, seriously, what has Spain ever done to anybody? Well, let's just get into it, folks. There is a Spanish enclave called Ceuta, that over the past week has witnessed what some people are calling an invasion and others are describing as a mass migration crisis. What happened is tens of thousands of people crossed from Morocco into the Spanish enclave of Ceuta in a very short period of time, overwhelming the local authorities and resulting in dozens of deaths. And now it's being considered a humanitarian emergency. Now, for context here, everybody got all up in arms about, oh my God, all these people are rushing into Ceuta, they're rushing into Spain. Oh my God. But would you believe it? Ceuta is actually in Africa. Yes, the Spanish, as slick as they are, because we forget they were colonizers too. For some reason, people only act like the British and the French were the only colonizers. But the Spanish were hell of colonizers as well. The Spanish actually have some land in Morocco, these enclaves, called Ceuta and Melilla. And they are in Africa. So what happened is Africans rushed into Africa, basically, as opposed to rushing into Spain. But this part of Africa is technically supposed to be Spain, apparently. So instead of the way it's being presented as if all these Africans just got on boats and rafts and swam to the European continent, no, they just really just walked across the street into a part of Morocco that is technically owned by Spain. And so this has turned into a huge crisis. It forms the European Union's only land border with Africa. So you had these 60,000 migrants last Friday crossed over into the Spanish territory. That's in Africa, mind you. That is in Africa. Spain deployed their military to reinforce the police. A bunch of people were killed during the crossing. Most of the migrants have either returned into Morocco or voluntarily gone back. Now, why did this happen? That's the question. Why did this happen? So there's a lot of underlying causes. High youth unemployment in Morocco. There's a lot of hardship in Morocco. Somebody put on social media that Spain's border was open. I wonder who did that. We'll get into that in a few minutes. There were images that seemed to suggest that this was some sort of organized movement, because there was not only a flood of people who suddenly emerged, but you also had them arriving on trucks and being unloaded near the border. That seems very strange. Who would be driving trucks full of migrants and putting them right there on the border? Some of the migrants themselves have testified that they were encouraged by Moroccan authorities there at the border, while at the same time looking at those posts that I talked about on Facebook saying, hey, the Spanish border is open. Now, this is all confusing and sort of intertwined, interlapping, should I say overlapping. So why is this happening? Why now? Why is this happening now? Okay. Well, it all goes back to United States and Israel. Once again, Spain has had disagreements with the Trump administration on several foreign policy issues. So Spain has been one of the main countries that has been calling out Israel and the United States over the war in Iran, criticizing Israel for their genocide in Gaza. And the Spanish prime minister is a guy who's a socialist. He's a leftist, a very hardcore leftist, who's been very critical of everything that the United States has been doing in terms of the military-industrial complex. While at the same time, Morocco has really close ties with Israel and the United States. In 2020, during Donald Trump's first term, with the Abraham Accords, they had the Abraham Accords. Morocco was a signatory of the Abraham Accords. And in exchange, the Trump administration recognized Morocco's control over Western Sahara. Morocco is basically colonizing another part of Africa called Western Sahara that's in dispute. So, how Trump does things is the way that the mafia and sort of corrupt New York businessmen do things. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. And so they signed on to the Abraham Accords, and Donald Trump says, okay, I'll recognize you guys' authority over this part of Africa that doesn't want to be controlled by you, but hey, we'll recognize Western Sahara as a part of you. Thomas Massie, there goes that name again, one of the few honest people in Congress, pointed out last week that the House actually passed a bill that would have given $40 million to Morocco, and in the bill it recognizes Ceuta and Melilla as part of Morocco. So they are screwing with the Spanish. They are screwing with the Spanish. They are saying, look, you guys don't go along with our wars in Iran. You're critical of what Israel's doing. You've been saying that Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal committing a genocide. So here's what we're going to do. This is why this story is important, because it shows you how dirty these people fight. They are saying, we're going to flood your country with immigrants and make life very hard for you and your people, because and we've seen this all over Europe, we're seeing it in this country, whenever there's a huge flood of immigrants, particularly poor immigrants, illegal immigrants oftentimes, the people who have to absorb these immigrants in the working class, the blue-collar people who have to live in the same communities as these people, who have to, compete for jobs with these people, who end up, getting robbed sometimes, or end up like you saw in Chicago, where they brought those Venezuelans, and a lot of them the women started turning tricks in the streets behind the police station there in Chicago. The people who have to live with that get mad at their government. And then they want blood. They either want to overthrow the government or they want to vote out the current government. So the United States and Israel basically said, you think you're going to call us out? You think you're going to say what you want to say about us and our genocide in Gaza and how stupid our wars are? We are going to destroy your government by flooding your country with immigrants. And so right now, all the evidence is circumstantial, but just listen to this. Just a few days before all this happened, Morocco named its highway that goes through the disputed territory of Western Sahara after Donald Trump. Yes, they named their highway in the middle of Africa somewhere after Donald Trump. And then Donald Trump posted about it on Truth Social, and he said, "Thank you to the great king of Morocco. I hope to one day ride through this amazingly beautiful highway." I love how Trump just can't enjoy anything. Everything that involves him has to be amazing and beautiful. He like the hyperbole of Trump is just like, you know, off the charts. So now MAGA has branded Spain public enemy number one. They're in bed with the Moroccans, them and the Israelis. They love the Moroccans. And so this is what the United States, we already talked about what the United States has done. What is Israel's role in this? Well, again, as I said earlier, Israel and Morocco have been strengthening their diplomatic and military and intelligence ties since at least 2020 during Donald Trump's first term, while at the same time they're going further apart from the Spanish. They are basically having a war of words with the Spanish. Now, why do many people think Israel is involved? Well, Yair Netanyahu, who is the son of Benjamin Netanyahu, said on Twitter not that long ago, "Let's make a deal. We won't fund NGOs in your country calling you to give away Ceuta and Melilla, and you'll stop funding NGOs in our country that cause us to give away Judea and Samaria." So what he's saying is, get out of our business about Gaza and the West Bank, and we'll leave Ceuta and Melilla, those territories that you have in Africa, alone. That's Benjamin Netanyahu's son. He also threatened Spain and the Spanish government directly on Twitter and said that they were going to let Ceuta and Melilla be taken over by Morocco. And so now Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, who is a socialist, like I said, and has been very critical of the war in Gaza, and, or should I say, the genocide in Gaza. It's not a war when only one of the groups of people have a military. And now the Iran war, and went as far to not even allow the United States government to dock our planes in Spain. Like they wouldn't even let us participate in anything in Spain whatsoever. And so this goes back to, again, the strategy of the sort of Zionists and the new right in this world that we live in. It's almost like what happened here in this country, in Texas and in Florida, where Greg Abbott and Ron DeSantis put all those illegal immigrants on buses and purposely dropped them off in Democratic cities. Remember that when they took all those buses and dropped them off in Chicago and dropped them off at like Martha's Vineyard? I thought they were, like, from a sheerly strategic perspective, I thought it was a brilliant strategy, but it is a very pernicious strategy. It is, once again, it is a form of warfare. Our government and our Zionist overlords are declaring war on any country that does not go along with our endless wars. And this is going to have huge consequences for all of us. Morocco, obviously, there's the situation with the Strait of Gibraltar that connects the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea. It's one of the world's busiest shipping routes. Military and commercial traffic absolutely depend on it. So if you have Israel, you have the United States in control of the Strait of Gibraltar from here on out, because the Moroccans have control of something that the Spanish at one point had control over. That's going to add another layer to the sort of geopolitical strife that we've been dealing with the Iranians and everyone else. So ultimately, this is shaping up to be a world war. When we look back in history, we may say, look, this was World War III. This was the beginnings of World War III. where you see all these countries that are being dragged into this conflict with Iran, with Russia, with China, and they're all sort of putting their pieces on the chessboard, moving them around at this point. How this is going to end, I have no idea, but it's important to keep track of these types of things because, like I said, in the future, in the near future, we may all need to know what Ceuta is and where it is and why somebody ended up getting a nuke dropped on them over it in the Strait of Gibraltar. All right, folks, that was a very, very serious, super serial first hour of Straight Out of the Cannon. I'm exhausted, so let's lighten the mood a little bit and get into some happies, shall we? Let's do it. We'll be right back after these on Straight Out of the Cannon here on WLTH 1370M. That is 92.7 in the FM dial. WLTH Live Studio. Subscribe, follow now. We'll be right back.